Mayfield and Ogden down the front straight. Rivkin still right behind him, pacing him.
Hey, I'm George, and this is the Northeast RC Racer Podcast, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Tom Petrella and Vin Manchenda. What's up, guys?
How you doing?
What's happening?
This is episode 12, and I, for one, are super stoked. I know Tom's been with me for a large portion of the ride as well, and Vinny's come on in the last couple episodes to really enhance the podcast and kind of broad spectrum it and get it not only into the racer conversation, but the technical setup side. So that's been awesome. We're celebrating our 12th episode right now. When I had come up with the concept and reached out to a few of the guys to see if I could put something like this together, I never thought if it would go to 3 episodes, 5, 10 live that we had recently, or 12. So I'm really excited that we could pull it off, and the group of guys that I'm with still find it entertaining and something that they look forward to every month. And we've gotten a lot of good feedback from the local racers. So that's also important. So super awesome. Episode number 12. Thanks for all the racers for watching. We really appreciate it. And I'm also going to put a special thanks to all of the people who've been on the show for the past 11 episodes. So special thanks to our first guest, Brian Cotta. He had just come off the Worlds. Jared Barden, Brett Butter, Jamie Grayek, Jason Schreffler, the Fenaris, Paul Ciccarello, the Manchendas. Thank you, Vinny. Average Joe Johnston, Jay Bless, and Steve Plackus. Lefty the Great. How awesome was it to have him on episode 10, our live? So, Lefty, thank you. If you hear this, we really appreciated that. And last but not least, our last episode special guest was Dan Seidler and his dad. And we could not have done this podcast without you guys. So I really appreciate that. Sorry if I sound robotic trying to cover everybody in our appreciation, but sometimes that's the way it is. I will mellow out as the other guys get a chance to talk. So what's been up with you guys recently?
It's getting cold and dark. I miss A-scale racing. Happy to get a little racing in at Fall Brawl, but it's been a little bit of a drought here. Missing getting out there.
You're not kidding, man. I hate this time change. That's for sure. What are we, farmers?
Yeah.
Vinny, what about you, man?
So I've been actually getting over to Crispy Critters, our local clay track, and
Nice.
I've been throwing down with the 74-2, doing a lot of setup. I just posted a setup on So Dialed for the 74-2 on clay, if anyone wants to check that out. And yeah, I've been doing a lot of testing on 8 scale on the home track over here. A lot of stuff that I'm going to talk about later when I talk about diffs. But yeah, no secret, we have a new buggy that came out, the B4.1 and the B4.1E. So I'm going to be talking about that later as well. So I'm excited to do testing on that and get a setup ready to go for SIC.
I'm going to see my skills here. So we're going to talk about this vehicle a little bit later, right, Vin?
Yeah, you know it.
Talking about. All right. See,
Yep.
Toby will be proud. I did my little practice session before. Cool. So that's awesome, man. Definitely excited. Any new product? I was hoping Kevin Winters might show up too and talk a little bit about the Sparko, because he was throwing a whole bunch of pictures in our group chat. I mean, I think he hit 3 or 4 different tracks coming up from Fall Brawl to see if he could run on them. I think one of them or 2 of them was after hours. He's taking spy shots and sending them to us.
Putting in the work.
Exactly. A lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun for sure. What else? So Tom Petrella, I know, was at Fall Brawl. That was our recent big event that happened on the East Coast, and a bunch of our racers had gone down there. So we're going to just catch a little recap with Tom, talking about some of the recent events. Before Tom does that, I just want to say that this section is brought to you by 46 RC Media. If you guys have an event going on and you're interested in covering it with media, cameras, live action, so on and so forth, top shelf coverage, look at Motorama, look at LCRC events. Toby's the guy that's doing it. He's the guy you want to call. He's the guy you want to pay to do your media coverage, because he will kick it up a notch for your track. So give him a call at 46 RC Media. Tom, Take it away, buddy. Let's talk about some fall brawl action.
Yeah, man. So awesome time down there. I just sent you a picture. I don't know if you have it queued up or not, but it's funny. We drove 9 hours down there. I actually drove down with Butter.
You keep talking, and I'll queue up the pic.
He drives a van as fast as he drives his RC car. So we made it in record time, which was kind of awesome. But no, I mean, first and foremost, just an awesome time. I mean, it was. I'm looking at the picture, and if you get a chance to pull it up, you'll see in a minute. We took a picture of just the Northeast racers that were there, and we had a bunch. It was a bunch of the guys from the barn, bunch of guys from trains, LCRC crew. So it was really cool to have, a lot of friendly faces all around us. Track was challenging.
When I do queue it up, I'm sorry to interrupt you. That picture is awesome, and I'm so glad when you guys took it, and I'm so upset that I actually couldn't be in the picture but next year I will be. So sorry about that. Keep going.
Well, that was good old Toby. We're missing Toby today, but that was Toby's idea. I'm happy we did it. It was trying to herd cats. We were all trying to get the picture taken. It was kind of funny. We trying to run and find people and bring people back, but it was cool to have the whole gang down there. But no, back to the track. The layout they built was challenging. There was pretty much 3 of the 4 corners had jumps on an angle that were almost on a pyramid. So you had to catch them right to clear them, which when the track was grooved was a challenge somewhat. When the track blew apart, it was really challenging. But man, I'm not used to that type of racing, right? I'm not used to a track getting basically blown out. And they would rebuild that track every night. They'd actually drag the track and re-roll it every night. So if you were in the first, say, 10 heats, you had a decent track to race on. After heat 10, it started getting more character. But I tell you what, everybody's like, man, I can't believe you drove that far to drive on a track that was, that kept breaking apart. I'm like, I actually loved it. I thought it was a new challenge that shouldn't say I've never, but I rarely race on that type of surface. And it evolved so quickly that it just added another layer of complexity. And I had to learn to slow down, be very deliberate on where my lines were. As the track got bumpy, you could see people just moving further and further out, into the cushion. And there's a lot of spots where I'd put 2 tires in the fluff and keep 2 tires on the inside and rail around stuff. And it was a blast. I think the Northeast represented ourselves pretty damn well down there. Dennis Brew, and Dennis had a bunch of bumps that weekend. So it was awesome to see him doing well. His program's kicking ass. He's really doing well. It's a shame he's over 40. I have to deal with him all next year. So what Dennis did, there's that picture. Nice. Dennis did awesome. It was good to see Alan down there. Davis was down there. I'm just looking at some of the faces here. Now, I'm not necessarily going to have a chance to go through everybody, but it was really cool to see. It was a really good group of guys. I know we're not really getting the silly season yet. Maybe we are later, but my buddy, my HB teammate Schreff, that was his last hurrah with the HB buggy. He won the 40 plus class and looked really damn good in the expert pro class. But it's an overall great time. It just kind of cracks me up whenever I go to these events that are pretty far away. I find myself racing with a lot of the same people, but being it's this group of people, that's a damn good thing. Did we lose George, Ben? You got to ask me a question.
Yeah, we may have lost George, but no, that sounds awesome. Honestly, that's like motocross. It sounds like when the track breaks apart and all that. Motocross, you're constantly changing your lines, and towards the end, if you're running hard, you're using the edge of the track. You're using every little bit of real estate you can find that's not blown apart and all that. So, yeah, I could imagine, anyone with that motocross mentality or background probably knew exactly what to do. And yeah, the track's alive. That's your other competitor. It's constantly changing every single lap, and you have to read it. It makes it exciting.
Absolutely.
For sure. Challenging.
I feel like I learned a lot, right? At the end of the day, I feel like I learned a lot. I wish I could have done more on the setup side. I was a little bit hesitant to make any big moves, which maybe I should have tried something bigger. But just learning that surface and picking my lines and everything was pretty cool to have to do that. I think it's going to make the rest of my program next year that much better along the way.
for sure. And a lot of setup changes for the bumpy track.
I didn't change as much as I should have, and that's why I always love your segments, Vince. So I kind of pick up more and more. I know I'm pretty confident in what I need to do, but a lot of times, especially when I'm running qual points, I'm afraid to make it too big a move and taking myself totally out of the mix. I mean, my nitro car was spot on. That felt really good. I have, now granted, I'm not clogged in or Lutz, but I remember marshalling those guys, and like some of these bumpy sections, I felt like I was tiptoeing through. These guys were hammered through it. Basically, go back to that motocross, right? I was rolling the whoops. These guys were just hammering through the whoops. Probably, I think part of my logic is, I don't know how much it was different on the setup side. I did talk to a few guys afterwards that gave me some good insights on what they did. But I think a lot of it is just the confidence, right? It's like if you're hammering through the whoops and you're 2/3 of the way through the whoops and you decide you're going to stop or slow down and stop topping them, it's not going to usually end well. And I didn't have the confidence to hold it the whole way, like some of these other guys did. But it was, again, a really cool event. I really enjoyed it. I'm trying to find somebody was nice enough to share their setup with me. Gary Wright. Gary's out from, I think, Chicago area. I met him there. He's an HB driver. His stuff was on, really looking good, his HB buggy. So I was trying to pick his brain to see, hey, what did you do at the end of it that you were able to handle some of this bump so much? But I know my cars felt good. There's probably more I can do, but I don't know about you, Vin. It seems like I get my best setup ideas when I'm driving home after my main saying, shoot, I should have tried that, or damn, I could have done that. But, I try to put it in the memory bank and remember for next time.
Hindsight's 2020. And that's why I tell my boys to have a setup sheet and put your notes on the back and write down, like, what did you do? What was even down to tire wear, were your tires good? Were they not? Do a tire analysis. And, the more feedback, the better off you are. Right.
Agreed. I kind of do something similar. I don't always take the best notes on everything, but my setups, I put all on my phone. I know you use SoDialed, which is cool. I use Adobe Acrobat Reader. And I basically have all my setup sheets there. And each time I go to a track, I start a new file and kind of keep track of what I was doing because I know I'm going to forget.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's the way to do it.
And as you get older, Tom, it's good not to forget.
Yeah. Hey, another guy before we move on, one other guy I got to give a shout out to, P-Word. Man, P-Word is rolling out there. It's impressive. He's flying. It's good to see.
I saw that from home watching, and I was super stoked for him. It was great, especially hearing Lefty call his name out a whole bunch of times. And you could tell Lefty likes P-Word, which is great. By the way, anybody who knows P-Word who doesn't know his real name, it's Frisco.
Frisco?
Frisco, yeah, man.
Frisco.
Like Crisco, but with a P.
Okay.
Anyway. He did great. That picture is great. Lots of great racers in there from the Northeast, and that's definitely a picture that was worth taking. So great job for you guys. Anything else you want to say about Fall Brawl? What about my boy Alan? Got to say something about him.
No, Alan did good, man. I think he struggled a little bit in his main, but he was rolling all weekend. First off, there's no one better. I have another person I race with who is usually the king of the laps, getting the most practice time in. I don't think I went on that stand once without Alan already being up there. Hey, God bless him, man. He was there. He was there to do well, and he did. He drove.
Yeah, man. Putting in the time for sure. But I heard and I saw that he had done pretty well, so I wanted to give my boy a little shout out.
Matt was doing good. I know you're friends with Matt Geist too. Matt did well.
Yeah, Matty did well too. Matty's definitely been putting in the time like Alan, so I'm really psyched to, see those guys, improve. Dennis Brew, special shout out. I know Tom Petrella said it before, and I even messaged you on the side, but you were Mr. Bump Train, and I even got a new T-shirt made for you, especially, brother. It's called the Bump Spot Player. Hashtag Bump Spot Player, just for you. Aside from that, I know the event was awesome, and the next big one that's coming up, I believe we'll talk about a little bit later. In the meantime, I wanted to bring our guest in for this month. Episode number 12's guest is Justin Drinks. If anybody knows him, he's from the Northeast. He's a great racer. Justin's in his mid-20s and races out of the New York area, and Barnstormers is his home. So I'm going to bring Justin in.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Justin, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm
Hey,
doing
George, you
well.
want to drop that picture?
How are you
real quick
guys?
so you see Justin better?
I'm working on it, Tom. I'm working
All right, I'm
on
trying
it.
to help, buddy. Toby's not here. He's
There he
our
is.
technical director.
I looked better before. Just cut it back up.
Justin, I am super stoked to have you here, man.
Appreciate
You know,
that.
I've known you for a number of years, right? I've probably known you since you were probably 18, I would say, because I've known you longer than 5 years, and you told me you were 27, right?
Yes.
So speculating, I probably know you since you're around 17 or 18. Always running into you at the barn, always racing with you, and you know, besides the fact that you're a great racer, you know, you're a gentleman out there. Whether it's just in the pits or it's just you know, coming by pit lane or just in an e-race, because you do both. So I wanted to make it a point and say that number one, not only are you a great racer, but you're a gentleman, and there's a lot of other guys that, you know, should, you know, follow somewhat of your example, especially a lot of the newer guys coming up. So we're very glad to have you here.
I appreciate you guys for having me and also the kind words.
Cool, man. So I know you're out of Barnstormers, right? That's pretty obvious. But for the majority of people that aren't familiar with you or where you race out of, why don't you talk a little bit about how you originally got into the hobby, right? Because I kind of like to ask all the guests that come here how they got exposure to RC, and then what kind of led them to the racetrack.
Okay, so some people know I'm second generation RC racer in my family. Dad was a big racer in the early 90s. He worked part-time at Bruckner Hobbies. He had a very good relationship with Tom Baffer and the Baffer family. I got into racing pretty much because of that, but my first race was really a race hosted by Bruckner Hobbies in Nanuet. I did pretty well at the race, but in the main, I was in a bump spot, and I wound up having to finish the race with two-wheel drive. Tom Baffert Jr., who was a great racer at the time, still would be a great racer if he did race. He was nice enough to give me his Kyosho buggy and let me run his car in the A main. And after doing well at that race, my dad pretty much threw in the towel, and he was mechanic from then on.
That's a hell of a
That's
problem to give up his racing career for. You must have really been flying out there.
It was his choice.
Gotcha. Well, it's hard to let your son beat you, right? So maybe it was the best thing, just concede the point right away, and then.
So I do have
Is that
say
going to happen
Dad
with
wasn't
Ophir,
racing.
like immediately?
Oh, Ophir, he should have already thrown the towel. And he's got him by a mile now. It's awesome
And he's
to see.
pissed.
And he is awesome now.
We'll get to Benny in a few episodes. Keep going, Justin.
Oh, that was about it. As far as my beginning.
All right, so
what class were you running, Justin? Out of curiosity, I know you said you only had two, and I said it'd be some sort of four-wheel drive, but
It was a nitro buggy. It was some old Offner buggy. We do not know which buggy it was. My dad's older brother had passed away before then, and that was one of the things that he, recovered from my uncle's property. And yeah, so that's kind of how the idea came up. And the race was local, maybe about 5-10 minutes away from my house. And yeah, I don't know what engine. I don't even know what tires.
well, they all work. That's the key thing.
yeah, whatever it was, it must have worked pretty well. It's because you're 10 years plus in. So, and how old were you this time when you started this?
Oh God, this would have had to have been 2007, maybe 2006. So 10 or 11.
Wow.
This was some time ago.
So you've been racing RC more than half your life.
I have.
Yeah, impressive.
and I'm not ashamed to say it.
So, Justin, talk a little bit about Bruckner hobbies, and then your influence. No, not influence. How they influenced you, other than your dad being involved there. Like, did you go to the store, you see everybody there, or did you just your dad was involved in racing, and that's kind of how you got excited about it? Was a lot of guys at Bruckner or in that scene into racing?
So dad was smart enough to not bring me around the store often. He knew that would mean spending more money. Um, Pretty much it was really through my dad, seeing all of his trophies, a lot of the cars in the house. Um, we kind of had a routine growing up. Like when he's gone on Sunday, if his keys are by the door, we knew dad went racing. So yeah, I mean, even now, dad's a mechanic by trade, so he stays involved behind the scenes, helping me prepare. Um, and yeah, he's really been that guy that's kept me in the hobby through many attempts to walk away.
So, what is the only because you said it a bunch of times, so now I got to ask. So, describe just a little bit about your dad's history of racing,
Um,
because I don't know anything about it, and now you mentioned it twice, so now I'm interested. What kind of racing did your dad do?
yeah, so I believe he started with A scale on road originally,
Okay.
but he found his passion on the on road side. Um, I know he dabbled in the 10 scale on road. He did 8 scale on road, mostly nitro. Um, but I'm pretty sure he's raced more classes than I even know. But he, I feel he was really one of the pioneers in New York City for the RC hobby. True ambassador. Um, he learned from guys like Chester, Tom Baffer. Uh, but it's really just he was just truly persistent with it. Again, a mechanic by trade. He was always interested in RC cars, and he said once he had the money to afford it, he was just like it was really just a big learning curve from there. He it's really persistence. I call it like stubbornness. I think all RC racers are truly just stubborn. Like we have to be. We just won't quit through all the hardships and financial hardships as far as the cost of traveling and participating. But
Sure.
yeah.
You make a good point there. And whether or not you're killing it or not, you're just participating in a sport that makes you happy. And at the end of the day, there's a cost associated with that, whether it's financial or emotional, separation from your family, so on and so forth. So,
Oh yeah,
but I
huge
don't,
investment.
yeah, huge investment. So, it's always that tough line. Vinny's got boys, so it's easy. Come on, let's go to the track. He's spending, time. I can't remember. Vinny, you have a daughter too?
No,
Okay.
no, just
So-
the two boys. Yeah.
Right. So unless you have a daughter, my daughter, I have two daughters. They're not interested in racing. So anytime I went to the track, it was really more like time away. So, um, anyway, Justin, who are you racing with now or for?
2023, I was racing with Team Mugen, Drake Racing, and I represent Barnstormers as well as I can. Um, that's about it. I hope to be able to continue with those two sponsors next year, of course, and whoever else that I may want to represent. Um, my options are pretty open right now, but Mugen for sure, sticking with it. Solid car, reliable. Um, we have a great team locally. A lot of great guys to hang out with. I think that's a huge factor when choosing your chassis brand. Who do you want to hang out with at the track? That it's that's a big part of it for me. Um, Adam Drake is awesome. Um, Super knowledgeable. I can't think of a better person to learn from. So I do think I'm going to be sticking with that package for the near future.
What were you running before that?
I ran Associated for, I want to say 6 years, since the beginning of the B3 platform, and then I had the point 1 and the point 2.
All right, so I know this is going to be tough for Vinny, but what is it that you like about the Mugen more than you like about your Bs that you were running with Associated? And especially the reason I ask you is because I just started running for S-Works and that car. So only the last race of the season did I start running it. So I have very little time, but it felt great really quickly. And I can't wait for the next opportunity to run it down at Adrenaline or Motorama. And even still, that's not going to be enough to, kind of feel good about it. But I want to hear your opinion about the change in the car and how you feel.
Mm.
Sorry,
So,
Vinny.
I don't think this is a real fair question because I kind of had the car through the progression, through the obstacles. Certain things had to be improved upon throughout that time. I had success with both. I just truly think with the Mugen, with the MBX 8R, that's when I moved to Mugen. It's like I kind of got like a finished product, per se. I got the revised product of what was already a good car that I was seeing, Brian get great results with and other great drivers get great results with. Um, yeah, this is a tough one. I'll say this. I don't feel like I have any issues with reliability with my Mugen cars. Um, as long as I prepare right. I
All right, so one doesn't
I
dive into the
it
corner
doesn't.
better than the other, or one
No,
doesn't.
no. I actually feel like the cars drive pretty similar.
Okay.
My Mugen R, when I got it, has more rear traction right out of the box, but I really don't have anything negative to say about the Associated car, even though that's what I know you're fishing for.
He's leaving the door open.
Well, you didn't have
I may need options in the future, George.
Well, you say it's a lot of it is about your community, which side of
Absolutely.
my community's leaving me, but
It used to be an HB community.
but you didn't have Vin back then, right? Vin's done a good job of keeping these together, and that really goes a long way when you have people you can rely on, right? I know Brian and Joe and a lot of other guys want to run Mugen. It makes sense. Well, it's not only to mention when, hey, I just broke an oddball part. Someone likely has that part if you don't have it with you.
Yeah, it's a huge factor. When you're 2-3 hours away from home, you don't want to have to worry about whether or not you're going to be able to complete your race or start your race. So yeah, that for sure was the biggest factor. The team aspect, as far as where Associated was when I was leaving, we were transitioning. That was when I believe that was right before Vin took over as the manager for our region. Yeah, Rohan reached out to me. I was already good friends with Rohan, but yeah, truly a great group of guys to work with.
Cool. We lost George, but I'm going to ask you a question. This is a selfish one. I know you run the barn a lot. What's the tire I need to have for the barn? I missed it last year, and I had to get ready to get back up there. I missed those guys. I missed one of support row. It's always a good time up that way.
Okay, so we're easy at the barn, real easy. You can't go wrong with your reflexes. The track is a little bit different in a way that the track actually gets better the more we water it. Like some tracks, when you water it a bit too much, that's when you start to get the car will feel more slick, more slippery. The barn is the opposite.
We like to say the barn loves water.
The barn does absolutely love water. Whenever we have terrible rain the day before a race, the race day is the best day, or the
Awesome.
track is the best all race day.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
it gets a little tricky though. Certain parts of the track tend to have more traction than others. So part of it is going to be on the driver, but I would say in the morning greens you won't go wrong with your JC stuff. But as the day goes on, you will start to traction roll if you don't go up to at least blue. And some guys really prefer to go to aqua by the mains if you have a longer race.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, in the heat, I'm sure.
Yeah, hot race. Typically, I'm
Hot
running
race,
Bangkoks or HB tire megabytes in the morning at the barn, and then by the afternoon, as long as the sun is up and the sun is kicking, then it's like full blown Amazonia, and then typically into a medium because there were some times this summer, especially you get that late afternoon New York sun. We're out in that big open field. There were sections of the track that were like shellacked, meaning like the surface of the track and some of the top of the rollers just had like the sun was reflecting off and the dirt was so polished that literally it was just great. It was great. And we season ended with a really good layout, so that was a lot of fun too.
oh yeah.
Right. That's interesting to hear. I was hoping for something a little bit more juicy there, Justin, but that's all right, brother. um, what's the biggest race you've been to so far, Justin?
Definitely Roar Nationals, A Scale Nationals.
Nice. Was that
At LCRC 20, a fairly recent one. What was that? 2 years ago? Three?
okay? Yeah.
I think it was 21.
And I also, well, I went when they had the race in 2012, but I didn't race. I pretty much just helped pit and watched. Um, Similar feel though, really intense. These guys are insane. It's like it's humbling and motivating at the same time. And definitely A scale national so far.
Did you feel intimidated there? Did you feel like you were doing good? I didn't get a chance to look up your stats. What's how did you feel being at that bigger race relative to some of the club stuff?
Mm. Definitely humbling. I did well for me anyway with truck. I think like 63rd or something like that. Definitely better than I thought I would do. I was pretty
Nice.
much racing with guys that I expected to race with, a couple of local guys. Um,
Okay.
Buggy, I did not do well in, but I struggled with the setup. I remember it being extremely hot out, and just kind of wanting to go my own way as far as the setup ideas, and totally missed the ball for the main. I think I was like in the in the eighth, one of the eighth mains, 1/8 for a buggy.
Okay.
But I think at least with Truggy, I did about as well as I could have, considering the competition. Uh, these guys are insane, man. It's totally different at these pro races, these national level races. Uh, Very cool though.
Different cast of characters come out of the woodwork.
Insane, insane. Very humbling, that's for sure.
That's an important thing you said there, right? So, like any local guy, you go to a club race, you can do well. You can even be the king of your club race. But then you go to a bigger event and then you can get your ass handed to you and then you take the ride home and it's a humbling experience. You remember what it's like actually to be outclassed, outpaced, outdriven, out-tooled, whatever the case might be, right? And then at least for the guys that really care about how they perform, you take that and you ingest it and you try to improve your craft for the next time around. You want it to inspire you, not, you want that kick in the balls to go to your advantage in the future, not sit there and cry about it and, just say how, shit, ended up hitting the fan or turning out. So I appreciate that comment. That's cool.
Absolutely.
I have a personal racer question to ask you because I know you well. Unlike some of the other people that come on the show, I don't know as well or have as much experience racing with. So something changed for you in the last, I would say, 2 to 3 seasons. So, and what I mean by that is like Justin Drinks used to go out there and he would run and, he would do good or be in the middle, but always competitive. But now there's a certain different vibe going on because you're running at like Greg Harmer's pace, just using him as an example.
Oh man,
Not
don't get
saying
carried away.
no. I'm not bullshitting you, man. I've looked at that stats. I've seen what's going on. Listen, Greg is 17, so he's younger. He's coming from a different generation of playing video games. It's a huge influence on what goes on. But truth be told, if anybody's paying attention, and that's part of the reason why you're also on the podcast, is that, there's definitely been a change in your program. I've seen it because I see you competing at a higher level. So tell me what's going on, man.
There absolutely has been a big change in my program. And about 2 or 3 years ago, I kind of took over the mechanical side of the hobby. You know, my dad has always been a huge support, huge help for me. He totally did everything for me on the mechanical side of the hobby for such a long time. And he would put the radio in my hand and let me compete. And for a very long time, that's the way we did business. And I came to understand that that was the way that dad preferred to do business for a long time, considering he was the sponsor, um, and the mechanic, you know, and the mechanic by trade anyway. That was his day job for a very long time. Um, so, so yeah, not too long ago, I kind of took over that portion of the hobby and also traveling by myself and spending more time with the other racers, getting to know guys on a personal level, letting them get to know me on a personal level as an adult and not, just in the 15-year-old that they may have known in the past. Um, and doing that has had a big impact on my racing because when things are working well, I know why. And when things aren't working well, it's way easier for me to identify why or to make that adjustment going forward. Um, so yeah, that really is or has been it, and it's been a learning curve um, because it's tough to be doing well in a race and to not be able to finish because of just doing something wrong on the mechanical side, for lack of a better way of putting things. So it's been a learning curve. I definitely encourage, the Greg Harmers of the hobby to at least try to get interested earlier than, your mid-20s if you plan on continuing racing. Truth be told, I wasn't all that interested in the mechanical side of the hobby. Um, I'm also a video gamer. There's something about that instant gratification with, you turn the button on and you can have hours of fun. RC, that is so much not the case. It's more work than fun, in my opinion. But I enjoy the competitiveness of it, hanging out with the guys. Uh, it's awesome to just to plan and to prepare, have that thing to look forward to. That anticipation, it's pretty awesome, and I kind of I got a new excitement for the hobby once I took over the mechanical side, for sure.
So when you say mechanical side, right? Because Vinny does our mechanical segment. Are you talking about just wrenching, Justin? Or are you talking about setup? Because obviously there's two different things, right? When it comes to mechanics.
So full on from when I buy the kit it's on me to put that thing together, set everything up, and I just call dad if I have an issue, or if there's something that I'm not sure about, I'll call him to make sure that I'm good. But so a little bit of both, but I'm for sure not a setup expert. I'm more so of the philosophy like once you get a good setup to kind of stick with it and kind of adjust your driving, or at times just try to drive it better more so than chase the setup. Um,
I
but
see. I see Petrella's head moving back and forth in certain directions as you're
and hey,
saying things.
this is probably why I don't win. But that's just the way I've approached it so far, and I've made progress so far. But yeah, so maybe more as I learn about how to adjust my car from round to round, um, maybe I'll be able to compete a little bit better.
Well, all you actually have.
My inner
Go
voice
ahead.
here. I'm talking to my inner voice with Justin. What he's saying, I'm kind of vibing. And George, at the same time, every question I keep writing down, you keep asking as I'm writing it down, you're asking it. So
Tom, after 12 episodes, I'm trying to hone. I'm trying to hone my craft a little bit.
My question was, Justin, do you write down your setups on a setup sheet?
Um, I don't at the moment. I take mental notes. Um, but from week to week, generally, I will leave the car set the same setup from the previous race, and I'll start the next weekend with the car like that. But answer your question, no, that's not a routine of mine.
That might be your next step. My advice
Understood.
for
Understood.
what it is, and on flip it over at the end of the race and write down a couple things you want to try next race, and then if you go out and practice, test those things and know what they do.
Got
And
it.
if you need any help, you can message me.
Absolutely. Got it.
I know
Appreciate
you
that.
got your dad for the support, but I'm always
Oh,
happy to help.
I
He's a good
appreciate
guy.
that.
Tell him I said hello. I haven't seen him in a while.
Cool. I will.
It's been a bit since he's been to the track.
He'll be around. He's
Nice.
letting me get he's letting me figure my stuff out.
Good.
We both realize he likes being more of a spectator, but I think next year we may be seeing him more and more in the pits because
Nice.
I had a few incidences this year and he's always watching at home when I'm racing, and once he sees me doing well and then my name suddenly dropped, he says he has to turn the race off. But you know, so I may need to have him come back.
Nice. Nice.
So, Justin, and a lot of what you said before, man, in terms of what at least I've noticed, and I'm sure other people have, right, is not only your wrenching and your mechanics, but I think a lot of it has to do with at least what I was hearing as you were talking is confidence in your racing. I think that you on top of that have said to yourself, okay, this is me, this is what I want. I'm you know I'm tired of necessarily coming in certain positions. I'm always in the game, but I'm not necessarily at the party. And I'm tired of being in the game and not being on the party. And then I think when that decision's made, and you're the type of guy I truly believe from knowing you over the years that, you're serious. And, when you make a decision, you put your mind to it. And I think that's ultimately, what's been happening. So I think that's great. And dude, you got a lot of potential. You're not, you work for a living like the rest of us. So you can only race as much as you can or travel where you can. So, you do very well for the amount of time you can put into it relative to it not being your number one gig.
Absolutely. Yeah, there will be some progress being made. Absolutely. I there are some things that I see when I watch these guys run, the faster guys, like going to a nationals, going to LCRC, racing with Lutz and Adam and these guys. There's certain things that they're doing that we can't really see with our eyes, but there's certain tricks that once you do it and once you feel it, there's something there. There's definitely things that I've been seeing and noticing that um, definitely make a difference. Some good days are coming for sure.
Well, it's one of those things, right? You made the big steps, and the big steps, it's awesome, right? But now to get to the next level, it's going to be not necessarily smaller steps, but smaller parts you have to get right that are going to accumulate to something really good, right? It's not always the big things those guys are doing. It's sometimes the real little things, but there's 25 little things they're doing that we all could probably help emulate, copy and emulate and improve all our programs. And it may only be a tenth here or a half a tenth there, but you can string 4 or 5 of those things together. Now you're picking up a half a second a lap, and sometimes that's the only difference, and the consistency.
Yeah. Sometimes a half a second really is the difference.
Absolutely.
Times 30 laps.
Times 30, it adds up. Adds up.
One of the things I'm surprised that you haven't mentioned, right? So you got the mechanics down. One thing for me, at least I'd say probably 2.5 years ago, right? When Invisible Speed first came out, the book that JQ wrote, right? I just assume everybody knows it now. I bought that book like immediately, and I probably read it about 5 times. And periodically I just pick it up, and I don't even care what section it's in. I just start rereading the section. A lot of it is JQ actually fucking repeating the same shit over and over again. So as I've read the book like 4 or 5 times now, I'm like, oh, that paragraph starts here. And then there's the same paragraph down here towards the end. So like he just takes a lot of shit that he writes and he just rewrites it again to not only re-emphasize, but I think, just to embellish the topic. But nonetheless, it's really been helpful. It's really been helpful for me to understand what I didn't understand. And I would say for at least 8 years of the last 10 years I've been racing, I never touched the car. I did exactly what you said. If the setup was good, because I didn't know if it was bad, I just drove around the setup. So when you drive around the setup and you don't use the setup to your advantage, hopefully Vinny's going to start shaking his head up and down, right? You use the setup to your advantage. Now you're driving not as hard as a driver as you used to be, because you ever do a race where the inputs just feel like you're not even thinking about them. Like you're like, for a moment, you might actually even say to yourself, I can't even believe I'm having this race right now, because it just like the timing of everything that I'm doing is spot on.
Quite
It's
a few
sporadic,
times. Oh yeah.
right?
When you
Right.
get in
And
that
then,
zone.
right. Well, it's not just the zone, right? Your car actually happens to be set up properly for that condition. And what the reason I believe that you get into that zone is because you're not driving around the setup like you were trying to say before. So do yourself a huge favor, man. Get the book. We're going into deep winter. I think you'll really be enlightened by what it has to say. And even if you don't get the book, just watch the last 3 or 4 episodes of the Northeast RC Racer podcast and pick up on the shit Vinny's laying down, because we're trying to cover all aspects of the car, which is just really going to bring value to your race program. But ultimately, it's a book that you should have. It's every racer's toilet book at a bare minimum.
Very cool. Okay. I'll look into it.
Cool, man. I just think it's, a pro bonus for you for sure. At a bare minimum, you understand at least what's going on with the car, what you should do relative to the track condition versus the other guys that are already doing that, and you're just driving around your setup. Who's your RC, like, not icon or idol, but who in RC as a racer or involved in RC do you like the most? Meaning it could be like somebody older in RC, it could be somebody new that races, it could be, Billy Saxton.
Could be George.
Doubtfully.
Admire Justin.
And you're not allowed to say the Drake, bro, because that was already mentioned.
That's too easy, right? Oh man, I never really thought about this.
Matsumi.
Now, are you asking like favorite like person in the hobby or like driver?
So it would be like, somebody in RC that basically stands out for you. Like somebody, since you're a hobbyist, right? And you're an RC racing hobbyist, it goes back from Tamiya or Offna, stuff like that, all the way to present time. So, maybe it was the owner of Reedy because you thought he was impressive by, coming out with a company and products, or, it's Ryan Mayfield because you like the way he races, or it was Ryan Cavallari because, he's the GOAT, whatever it might be.
I think it might have to be Richard Saxton. I think
All right.
he's a pretty cool dude. Seeing him race, I think he's probably the only driver that I've seen that shakes harder than me on the driver's stand, and he is a fantastic driver. So definitely he's a great guy to watch.
A lot of history with that name.
Yeah.
All right, very cool, man. I like to ask that question because for everybody's got a different opinion of it. So it's always interesting to see. Who else has got a question for Justin?
You took all my questions. Everything I wrote down, you kept asking them.
You asked all the good questions, sir.
To go back
All
to
right,
the
What's
regular
going to be your
schedule
first
now.
race next season? What's your first race?
First race. I haven't planned it yet. It'll most likely be a local race at the barn.
Barn opener.
I did want to get to Fall Brawl. For me, I wanted to do AMS originally. I thought that format was amazing. That would have been worth traveling for. Fall Brawl. I was on board to go, but kind of backed out at the last minute after seeing the track and seeing last year's race, seeing the pro-am anyway. That was this year. I figured I would save the funds for a better day, a better weekend.
We talked about that right before you got on. It got rough, but I enjoyed the challenge. But
I watched it. The layout was awesome.
Yeah,
it was.
And if you got the first 10 heats, it was a lot of fun. Just as the track started falling apart, it was tough. But that's part of the learning. So I do have a question for you. So you did mention one of the questions I wanted to ask you before was, as your program's evolved and grown, you starting to rent on your own cars was probably the one thing you think was the biggest step, right, in your program, But is there something else you could think of that was another big leap in your program?
Definitely just putting in the reps. Virtual RC is a good tool. I did 2 seasons ago. In the off season, I don't do much 10 scale. I tried it for a few years. Maybe I'll actually give it another try in a few years, in the near future anyway. But over that off season, I deliberately put in the time with the plan to make some progress. There was a good group of guys that were playing that winter that would be online at the same time. We would do races together. So I guess just putting in more reps, doing more laps, getting in more practice. Practice was one thing that I didn't do much of over the course of my career. Dad would want to prep the car for race time, and that just was usually how we did things. And at the time, I didn't understand it. Now I very much do. It's a lot of work to prep the car once. Now you got to prep it twice, if you want to go bash throughout the week or practice throughout the week. So I think practice is to answer your question, practice truly has been a big difference for me.
And you see a lot of value in VRC?
I do. Just having the radio in your hand for more time. No different
No,
than
you're
going to
right.
the gym, just putting in more reps, just doing more laps. Yeah,
Let
that
me get back
it's a
on it.
good tool.
You're saying that, Greg said it. Benny does a ton of it. And there's a lot of guys that are using it and gaining a lot of value and ultimately speed out.
There were a lot of pros, up and coming pros that I got to meet online. Just messing with that game. It's a good tool. I would say the free version kind of discourages people. It's very much a game that you have to buy the full version if you want to enjoy it. You need the variety of tracks. You need the tunability of the car to make it steer. I think like the stock setup just pushes, and also the stock setup doesn't go fast enough to clear certain jumps. So I guess similar to real racing, once you get the setup down and understand the setup, it really is a good tool for practice. I
Send
highly
me your
recommend it.
setup.
Yeah, I could. It's been a while since I've been on the game though, but
Send me your setup.
do it. I'll do it. I'll make it happen. If you're gonna actually practice though,
I played the game.
George get any faster.
it helps.
What's that? What's that, Tom?
So we don't want George getting any faster.
Oh, he doesn't want me to get you anything out, so I can't help you.
You wait this year, pal.
Practice, man. Try it. If you can master some of these former national tracks, world tracks, DNCs, some of these tracks in Asia, if you can master some of these, there's nothing that Rohan or Kevin could build that you can't figure out, by main day anyway.
You master what is it, the Pattaya track?
Absolutely
Don't know.
not. Master is probably the wrong word. But if you get good at some of these insanely difficult tracks, you can't break your car. You could try just about anything as far as driving. So, and you may figure something out. I promise you, there's certain tricks that these guys are doing that, as far as the driving, that we cannot see with our eyes. There's certain inputs that they're giving, the timing, the throttle input, uh, the way you approach certain jumps. There are things that you could figure out for sure just from doing more laps, and you may feel it and say, "Oh, what was that?" and do it again, and maybe you'll have some new tricks next year.
We're gonna find out. That's for sure. Vinny, everything you just said, Vinny already knows. That's why he's stoic over there. He's like, I know all that shit already.
Those boys have been killing it. That's why.
Exactly.
Absolutely killing it. Like we mentioned Harmer, but Dylan's been right there. And Aiden's been right there. Dylan's been the one that's been right on my behind, sometimes beating me now. But Aiden is right there with Greg as far as that potential to really to do this for money or at least to represent these companies and in a way that most people can't, to say the least.
True. Very true. I got a Greg Harmer tire up there. I need a Aiden Manchenda tire up there as well.
Got to get it before he forgets about you.
There's no Tom Petrella tire up there.
I'm washed up, buddy. It's over.
That's not true at all, my man.
I'm
40 plus. You're like 40 plus king.
All these guys are getting faster than 40 plus. Everybody keeps moving up. I got Curry coming in. All these other guys coming in. I need a 50 plus class now to keep moving the bar up.
You need an S Works.
Maybe.
I will relentlessly bust his balls as the last man standing at HB Racing.
You know what? I hear it, but damn it, if my nitro car, the new nitro car, I've never had a car as good. You were talking before, right? When it just feels right and it just clicks and you can just do whatever you want to do on the track. When I've had that car out the last 2 times, it's how it's been. So I still got a little work to do on the e-buggy, but man, that nitro car is It's the shit.
I have no
I-
complaints. No complaints about my HB. It's hanging on the wall, dude. She was a good girl and very reliable. So I'm just busting chops for sure.
And you know,
What are you gonna
and
say, Justin?
yeah, just going off of what Tom said, like I know it's a fine line there. You definitely want to make improvements throughout the day, but we get very limited time on the track. Which hopefully this is something we can improve on in the future. But
More racing, less qualifying.
more that I would be all for, but also
You got to talk
more
to Rowan, man.
warm-ups, like yeah, we talk, a lot of it. I know a lot of the format is done so that for the sake of time we could get the program in a reasonable amount of time, but at least on the nitro side, we do one lap, come in, fuel up, and you're on the clock. It's you get very limited amounts of time to adjust to your new setup, so I know it's a fine line, but I typically do mostly events. I usually I do events more so than club racing. The barn. I'm spoiled with the barn and Rohan, so sometimes I won't even plan on racing, and I'll wind up racing because it's just close enough. I have the resources there, even if my order didn't come in on time. I know I can still race. But yeah, it's tough to show up on race day and to not know what your car is going to do. So although I can't really compete with the Katas and the Harmers and the Manchandas at the
Stop it.
moment, I'll be realistic here. My lap times are usually about a second off. My hot lap would be a second and a half off from these guys, which is huge. When they're on the track with you at the same time. So I'll be realistic there, but I will say, knowing what my car is going to do when I go out on the track is an advantage for me over the rest of the field at times, where I'll watch guys and they're making certain changes and they don't necessarily know what it's going to do. It's one thing if you know what's going to happen here, but I think it can be a disadvantage, that uncertainty when you go up there, at least at the beginning of your run.
I agree with you. I look at it this way: you can run 8 40-second laps, or you can run 7 39-second laps and have 1 48-second lap because you messed up and you weren't comfortable in your car, and your net is the same. I'll take the 40 seconds to be consistent.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And until you're racing with like insane competition, I typically err on the side of caution, or I that's kind of what I kind of encourage from a local racer, the guy who's just still figuring it out, the guy who's not necessarily all that talented on the driving side. I really encourage just knowing what your car is going to do, with the tire choice as well, just keeping it really simple. And that's kind of just the way I do it as far as big races at the moment, considering the limited track time. But yeah, that was just going off of what Tom was saying. So I know me and Tom are just against Vin totally and George, but no, not
I'll tell
totally.
you what. I mean, I
Not
think
totally.
George had a good point before. If you're not listening to these podcasts all the time, make sure you do tune in and at least go towards the end and listen to what Vin's saying, because Vin's dropping a ton of knowledge, which I'm loving. Right? I mean, I get to do this and talk to people like you and hang out. It's kind of cool having, it's like hanging out at the track without being at the track. But the insights we're getting for Vin, because like I was saying before, right, 8 40-second laps compared to 7 39s and 140. But with Vin's advice, I'm hoping to get consistent 39 and a halves and not have that accident and get comfortable with that faster pace. And I think that's a big step.
Right.
That is essentially what it's all about, and that's kind of how I trained the boys too, was to work on your consistency first. The speed will come with time. Speed is when I taught motorcycle racing, speed is a byproduct of proper technique. So if you go out there and you practice the proper technique and your right riding position, et cetera, and your bike is set up the right way, same thing. So same thing with RC, you're exercising your mind as well as knowing that setup, knowing when to change setup. For example, LCRC, the groove comes up. You got to make some changes. What are you going to do now? Now we're traction rolling. Are we changing sway bars? Are we changing hub height? There's options. So knowing in that experience was, I was like, all right, boys, we need to stay here after an LCRC race and go race when the blue groove is out and have a different setup for that A main than we do for everything else, because by the time that A main rolls around, it's a different track. Like we were talking about before, the track is alive. So that's your other competitor. You need to know that track really well.
Great point, Finn.
Absolutely.
I hope my wife's listening to this, because that's actually a good idea. Next time I go to LCRC, I might have to stay and come home on Monday and just spend a little
No,
time. Seriously, no, but seriously,
I-
after knowing what's there, usually the end of the weekend, and I have a blast when we're there. But usually, like, I want to get home, I want to see my wife, I want to see my dog, and but to take that opportunity, because to your point, you're not going to have that same track condition again until the end of the next race weekend.
That's why you see a lot of the top guys stay after. Ryan Lutz,
always.
he's usually right there with us practicing
Always.
after the race. And this is the guy who just won. And he's still double checking his setup, looking for ways to improve, for the next time he comes back.
I did. Typically, I'm packed up before the main and ready to get the heck out of there as soon as I can. But I did one time stay after an LCRC race and did some practice laps. And within one tank, I totally figured out a change that I should have made a long time ago. And it's insane, practice. That's what we really need to do more of, to prepare. Just more practice.
Well, it's
Not
all about
such an
building that knowledge,
easy-
right? Putting that memory bank together and saying, okay, these are little things I can tweak and do in these situations.
Right.
It's the right kind of practice too. And JQ talks about practicing with a purpose. He's absolutely right. You need to go out there. I used to tell my students for road racing, come out to the track. You're spending all this money on a track day. You got $500, $600 worth of Pirelli tires on your bike. Use it wisely. Don't just go out there and have fun. Turn some clicks, make some adjustments. Even if it's your part of your riding technique, try some stuff, write it down. And I got that from RC and brought it over.
It's great stuff, Finn. It's true.
Oh, yeah.
Setup's a big component, right? We're operating, small, very dynamic little machines, and they accept inputs and adjustments relative to the conditions that they're facing. So it's all good stuff, which leads us to, if Tom or Vinny doesn't have another question for Justin, we're going to head over to Vinny's setup section. And Justin, please hang out. We're not asking you to leave. I think we covered Justin Drinks in total. I think we covered you as a racer, your aspirations. The only actual question before we go in there, and maybe you can just shoot it out quickly, is last question I had for you is, what race do you want to go to next year that you've never been to before?
Ooh, I've been looking at the track Thornhill in Texas. I don't know which city.
Nice.
That track looks pretty awesome. I was told that they have a series there that they do that attracts a lot of the best racers. Insane competition. So I hope to maybe get out there for a series race and maybe some practice also.
Cool.
That-
Yeah, me too.
That sounds that sounds really cool, man.
Yeah.
All right. With that being said, Justin Drinks was our guest. He's going to hang out for the balance of the podcast. We're going to roll into Ben Manchem, the setup section, which I believe is differentials for this week. This segment is brought to you by offroadrcracer.com. T-shirts, vinyls, tumblers, custom RC A-scale hats, nitro or electric, electric t-shirts, so on and so forth. Plenty of time for Christmas. Get one if you can. Really appreciate it and support. It's my website. Got lots of great stuff for our hobby. Check one out. Throw one in your stocking stuffer. Vin, let's hear about some diffs, brother.
All right, we were just talking about Thornhill, and I need to give a shout out to my buddy Kurt Wenger, who's that's his home track, Thornhill. Kurt took the time to spend like over an hour on the phone with me talking about diffs and different things, and just going over things so that my notes were perfect for today. So thank you, Kurt, if you're listening. But yeah, I'm going to keep it basic with diffs. There's a lot of good videos on maintenance and how to rebuild your diffs and all that. I think the instructions, tell it pretty well. The only thing I'm going to talk about real quick is I love using this stuff right here, this Maxima grease. This is dirt bike stuff, I know, but this stuff works really, really well in the diff. So, it just seems to last a long time, and it doesn't cook and get eaten up like a lot of the other greases. So I just happen to use that. Now talking about diffs, in generally speaking, higher the grip, the hotter it is out, the higher the grip, the higher your diff fluid should be. The lower the grip and the cooler it is out, the lower your diff fluid should be. So it's important to balance your diffs, and that's how you're going to create the maximum amount of stability and grip in your car, is to balance it properly. So first, I want to break down what kind of gears are in our diffs. So for Associated, we have two different types of gears. Okay, you see this guy right here. This is the LTC. These are smaller gears. These are for better. I'm going to get into why these are better and for what conditions. And this is HTC, and this, they both have their ups and downs, and we're going to get into that. So HTC, as you can see, are bigger gears. So when the gears mesh, there's going to be more impact from the oil viscosity. So now getting into LTC, and once again, LTC, the smaller gears. Okay. So what's good about LTC is it prevents traction break on low to medium grip tracks. Okay. It allows the suspension to move a little bit more freely. It's more plush to drive, more four-wheel drive bite, or forward bite, excuse me, with the LTC diffs. Now, you also have to be careful because the LTC diffs don't have as much surface area. You're going to need to run thicker diff oil. HTC happens to lock up more due to the gears, not as much because of the oil, more because of the gear mesh, because they're bigger gears. There's more surface area, more resistance. So they kind of want to lock up on drive. The drive line locks, so you're gonna see more skidding. That's why it's not the best on low to medium grip tracks, because you're going to be skidding around a little bit more. Now, some people say it adds stability and support. They prefer it. When you have your balance set right, you can use HTC diffs effectively. But if you balance the LTCs correctly on low to medium grip tracks, you will see an advantage, more forward bite, more roll, et cetera, et cetera. So the HTCs, getting back to that, that's super hot, high grip track. That's when you want to have those HTC gears in there. So moving to the front diffs, okay, a thinner diff oil. You're going to want, generally speaking, thinner oils are used for lower grip. Thinner oil is going to steer into the corner better, but on exit, it might not, because it might be diffing out. It depends on the level of traction. So, if it diffs out, you're going to notice more wear on one tire than the other. You're going to see tires balloon up. And then you need to go to a thicker front diff, at least, and possibly even a center diff. So it's not going to pull the rear around as hard either. So it won't, it can be an advantage there going down. If let's say you're too high on your front diff oil and you see it pulling the rear around, you might want to try going down a little bit. You are, like I said, going to see more tire wear though. On a thicker front diff, you want this for higher grip tracks. And this is going to be more stable, more precise entering the corner. You're going to have more on-power steering going out of the corner. And once again, it can overpower the rear, making it kind of fishtail back and forth, and you're kind of fighting to keep it in control. So that you want to make sure that that front the diffs are balanced correctly from front to back, and that's going to help prevent that as well. Okay, so moving to the center diff. The center diff on the AE cars, we always run the HTC gears. The reason is because we want that four-wheel drive effect. We want it to lock up a little more. So on the center, we're always running the HTCs. If you're running a thinner oil in the center diff, it's going to bleed power, and it's going to be better for low grip. It's going to be calmer. It's going to be easier to drive. It's going to be better for bumpy tracks. You can go down on that center diff on bumpy tracks, and it's going to be much easier to drive. You're going to see, if it's too thin, you're going to see more front tire wear. You're going to see both front tires spinning a little bit more, and you're going to know that you're bleeding a lot of power, which could be forward bite, which means that you're going slower. It might be easier to drive, but it might not be as fast. So this is helpful. The thinner is helpful for tight, low grip tracks, tracks with a lot of 180s. That's where you want to see a lower center diff, a thinner center diff. The thicker center diff is for higher grip tracks. I personally like to have something a little bit thicker on the center diff for that four-wheel drive effect, and also it helps the car land on power, so you can kind of just land, pinned and and let it have it. You can let it rip. It can also feel loose on low grip. So if you're too thick, and it's going to feel like it's just sliding all around and hard to control. So there is a balance, and you need to go out there, test, and find it. I'm going to talk about AE diff oils in a second, what we run, but I'll continue with the rear diffs. So once again, with the rear diff, and the rear diff is pretty vital to getting this right so that the car handles the right way. I know, like, for example, on our car or the new 4.1, for example, I'll probably be running diffs like, 8 in the front, 7 in the middle, and, sorry, those are HTC. I'm going to be running 15,000 LTC in the front. I'm going to be running 7K HTC in the center most of the time, unless it's really low grip. And then on the rear, I'm going to be doing 15 LTC, and that I've been testing with that, and that feels the best. So a thinner rear is going to be smoother going into the corner. It's going to be looser coming out of the corner, though. You might have some fishtail there. If you don't have it right, the car is going to let you know. A thicker rear diff is better for higher grip, and it's a little bit more aggressive going into the corner, but it's going to be calmer coming out of the corner. So you're going to have more support. It's going to lock a little bit more on exit, which personally is the way I like it, which is why I'm running 15 LTC on the rear. So when you balance your diffs out, the important thing to know is that the front shouldn't pull the rear around. The rear shouldn't, push the front around. You have to kind of test, and test in small increments. And, when you get it right, you're going to know the car is going to feel great. Universals, if you're running universals, the new 4.1 comes with universals. So you're going to want to go up on your diff fluids a little bit when you're running universals, because it kind of frees up the motion. So you want to get some of that back. The universals free up the motion. So do the LTC diffs. When you go to the LTC diffs, like I said before, you're running a higher weight, and you can check the little decoder that I showed you guys last time, this little guy, which I love, by the way. So I just checked them from HTC to LTC to make sure I had the same amount. I mark my diffs, if you guys can see that, 385 on the decoder, L for LTC, and 20K oil. So this is a front diff of mine. In my car.
Vinny, show the decoder again.
Sure. It's this little guy right here.
Explain it quickly.
You press this button right here. In fact, I can show you real quick. If you guys give me a quick second to just grab a cord.
Justin, you see this yet?
I can show you exactly how this
I've
little
never
guy
seen
works.
it before. I thought Tom was just smoking one of those before.
Yeah, this little guy is awesome.
Diff fluid checker. So if you want to see the status of the viscosity of your diff fluid, it does it like so. obviously, when you just rebuild a diff, it has a certain viscosity, and after it's been used for X amount of time, it has a different viscosity. So you can judge
Wow.
when you need to basically swap your diff fluid out. Is the point?
Very cool.
All right,
Never
so
even heard of that.
my battery died charging my laptop that I'm using. So I might not be able to. I showed you guys on the last episode, and if you
Yep.
need me to, I'll show it to you again. But basically, without it being on, I just stick this guy in here. I press the button on this thing. I just press this button, and right here, it's just going to read out a number. It's going to actually spin this and read out a number. And one of the other things that I just got for this is an attachment, a 17 millimeter attachment, so I can actually stick it right on my 8-scale buggy and read it right from the wheel without taking anything apart, without taking the diff out. I can check my diff to see how worn it is, to see, is it leaking fluid? Is it still the viscosity I thought it was? Do I need something stiffer in there for more support? So this is a great tool. I would say at this point, for us, it's definitely a must-have. And there's more than one company that makes it. I know the factory team one, it goes for around $100.
Well, the great part about that part is it takes the guessing out of, let's say, understanding where your diff is. So if you're a super serious racer, you're a sponsored guy, or you're going out to big events and you really want to see, if you're pulling a diff out of your box you haven't used in a while, right? And you got a number down that's based on what it was rebuilt, and you do it, and you're like, oh, that thing's shot. I'm not using that thing. So
Yeah.
it just really depends what's going on.
Yep.
Before I go back and exit you from solo screen, Vin, are you wrapped up in your segment, or you got anything else to say about this?
For the most part, we're done with diffs. I'm down to talk about the B4.1 if you guys want.
You got it.
Well, Vin,
So,
I just want to kind of build on what you were talking about a little bit before, just on the diff section. I know when I started really traveling a lot more, the one guy I was racing with, O'Keefe, he was big on like, hey, I'm just going to change diffs. I'm going to tune my car basically solely with my diffs, just to understand that portion of the car. And then he would work on the next section, right? And we were kind of, and I'm sort of talking to myself, giving myself advice as we're chatting here in regards to, focus on one setup thing, right? Because there's multiple things you could do to give you the same potential effect.
Right.
But, it's kind of gets to everybody out there, right? Focus in one area. And diffs is a good area to use that as a jumping off point to start, to tune your car and just focus on that.
Yeah, there's a lot to know for sure. And it can be complicated. And then you put all the pieces of the puzzle together, and then things start to click and things start to work. But unless you go through like, all right, I'm going to test front diffs today. I'm going to test, I remember being at, where were we? We were at Trains and Lanes. And I remember it was Mike Fernari that came up with, try 15K in the front diff. This was our old 3.2. And we put that 15K in there, and all of a sudden the buggy was just amazing. And that was a particularly hard buggy to drive compared to our newer version, especially this new 4.1 is much easier to drive and much better for the entire range of drivers, where I feel like the car that Justin was driving back then, what the 3.1, the 3.2 was a little bit more for the advanced driver. It was aggressive. But anyway, getting to our new car, the B4.1E in this particular case, I'm excited to tell you that it should be out. It should be it just had its release 2 days ago. It should be available before the end of the month.
It's associate. It's associate. Isn't always 2 weeks for associate. Every time somebody has a new car, 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks there'll be something else. Yeah. No, that's the ongoing joke. And to be honest with you, we are always developing our vehicles. We are always working on something. When there's enough to make a material difference in the product, that's when you're going to see a new version. So it's not like a set, okay, this product life cycle is 18 months, and at 18 months we're dropping it, and here's a new product no matter what it is. That's not at all how AE rolls. We all work together as a team, which is really cool. Like I said, I talked to Kurt Wenger, and he teaches me a lot. Every once in a while I have something interesting to say, but lately he's been teaching me the most. But we all work together. And Spencer's a great big help too. At AMS, he definitely showed the boys a bunch of stuff. So yeah, it's always a progression. and they're out there making it better and better and better. So with this car, we'll talk about with the diffs. They changed the diffs to 4413 gear set. So this is actually the 4413 gear set right here, and nothing special. It's just got 44 teeth on it, and it uses a 13 tooth pinion. Before it was a 4212. So we changed the gear ratio ever so slightly. With this gear ratio, what's profound is that there's less rotation speed, so your diffs aren't getting as hot, your bearings aren't getting as hot, the bearing cases aren't getting as hot. Everything is staying cooler. And then when you mate this with a 2100 kV motor, it happens to be really smooth with the power delivery, especially off the bottom. So it's like almost like changing the frequency on your ESC. Hey, we can talk about that soon too. So the 4413 mated with the 2100 kV motor is smoother, and we've tested it. That's actually what Dylan ran at AMS, and he absolutely loved it. So yeah, we'll be sticking with that. So universal drive shafts with 17 millimeter outdrives. These outdrives, and nothing special. We've had it before. I've had it on all my cars. Aiden and Dylan ran that all year, but now it comes with the kit. So what is really unique about this car going down with the chassis, you can change it from front weight bias to rear weight bias. So right now, like Aiden prefers a front weight bias, whereas Dylan and I prefer the rear weight bias. However, Aiden's a more aggressive driver, and Dylan and I like a more conservative car. The RWB does handle bumps a lot better. It's going to be better in bumpy conditions. You're going to have more of a rearward weight bias. So the rear is going to be more planted. The front's going to be a little bit lighter, almost like going through a whoop section on a dirt bike. You want to keep the front light and you want to plant the rear, and it gets through those bumps easy. This is exactly the same premise. You're moving the weight back. The motor gets moved back, I believe, 10 millimeters. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's 10 millimeters. And yeah, that's enough to make a substantial difference. So the new chassis, it's really cool. We talked about your Sparco having a tapered chassis. Well, this new chassis is tapered as well. That adds a little bit more stability, rigid, a little bit more rigid on one end versus the other. So it affects the balance. There's a couple upgrades like the blue aluminum front upper arm mount that's been beefed up. One of the other changes, the shock bodies are a little bit shorter. So the shock shafts can now be a little bit shorter, which means that there's a little bit less oil volume, which means the shock towers are a little bit lower, which means that we have a lower center of gravity and a lighter vehicle overall. So that's a significant change that should make a big difference. Those shorter shock bodies are going to allow everything to stay lower. And like I explained, that's going to affect the roll center a little bit as well. So the +1 steering arms, I'm just going around over here on this thing, going back up the other side. So the +1 steering arms, it changes the Ackerman of the car, which actually helps it turn in and out of the corner a lot better. It's just a better steering car with the +1s. You can even go to Shell Racing and you can get zeros, which are even a little bit more, for certain tracks, they might work a little bit better. And those are available through Shell Racing, Kurt Wenger. Molded 4.1 front bumper is optimized for bumpy transitions. Not a big deal. 3-hole rear suspension arms with updated rear anti-roll geometry for all track conditions. So what's cool is that we have a 3rd hole where we can run even softer suspension and still have the support on the rear end. And then at the same time, we're able to now move our sway bar mounts in and out. So the rear sway bar, we can actually move it in. So let's say we don't want to drop to a heavier, or we don't want to go up to the heavier sway bar. We can actually move the mounts in, which are going to make it a little bit stiffer. So it's almost like doing a half size, which is awesome. So it's like, even like, if you needed a half a change on your springs, this is going to help you achieve that, because it's changing how it rolls a little bit, stiffening up the roll a little bit, but not enough to warrant that heavier sway bar, which is great. So for us, like a lot of times we'll go from a 2.4 on the rear, and then once the groove comes up, we'll be on a 2.5. So now we can go somewhere in the middle and be, and see if that works, and still maybe even pick up a little bit more rear grip and more speed. The durable rear hub.
That's moving the mounts further in on the arm, closer to the center of the car.
Yeah. No,
Heavier feel overall.
for the rear, it would be closer to the back of the car. So it's basically, it's making it so as if the sway bar was a little bit shorter.
Okay.
And it's that positioning stiffens it up a little bit.
Gotcha.
So the new rear hub is basically like the version 2 hub that is already in place. It's just not a metal body; it's a plastic body. But it's great that all that stuff comes stock with the kit now. The wing mount features adjustable wing angle, shim strength improvements, and aerodynamic shape. So we have a new wing mount too to add to it. So it's already a great platform, and with these changes, it's going to be it's significant. In my testing, it's been amazing. I haven't tested the new shocks or the shock towers yet, but by the end of the month, I should have that. So that's pretty much it.
Sweet. Team Associated should be funding the next episode of the podcast based on your dissertation of the car.
We'll see. You never know.
Go Team Associated.
Right on.
Awesome.
Yeah, a lot of hard work. A lot of good guys putting in a lot of hard work, which is awesome to see. So
Justin, if you go back 1 or 2 episodes, you can hear Vinny's explanation of roll centers, and that way you'll get up to speed on roll centers and roll center adjustments for your next big event.
I'll get all caught up. Don't worry.
Right on.
I had to watch a few episodes to prepare for tonight, so I'm halfway there. Don't worry.
Cool, man. Cool.
Awesome.
Hopefully they're getting better as you watch them.
You guys do a great job. I was hoping to see Toby tonight too.
Yeah.
Kevin too, and Brian.
Sorry, put a special shout out for Toby right now. Go ahead.
Toby, you do a great job for the RC community on the media side. We appreciate that, and we hope that you continue to do what you do.
Second that. Come on.
Yes, sir. So, Tom, we're rolling into silly season right now, and I know Vinny had mentioned that there is an event coming up, which we all know well. I'm just looking for flyers. Give me a second. What the hell is that thing? But SIC is coming up, right?
Yeah, first one of the season.
Bueller.
Yeah.
Where's that race located at?
So it's down in Alabama, and I think we have the flyer that I think George is going to put up in a second. I can't pronounce the town it's in. I'm not even going to try. You guys can just put it up. You guys are on your own. Yeah. So Alabama, it's far. When we went to AMS, how many hours did we spend on the road? It was like it wasn't 24, but it felt like it. I think it was like 18 hours total, including a stop and with the RV. So I would say without maybe 14 hours, something like that.
Whew.
Yeah, it's a hike, but it's worth it, man. To go to a race time event. We went to 2 now, and I don't think we can miss any of them. These boys are all about it.
Race time is like it's basically the monster of RC.
Yeah.
These events they're huge. For me, they're a little bit too big. Too many entries for me. I'm gonna pick and choose the one that I get to. I thought AMS was awesome. What was it, like 30-minute lower mains? Something ridiculous like that. They had, I believe they also had like the practice schedule was formatted in a way that you go up with your heats. There was a few good things that I noticed about that format. Race time, they do a great job. I'm always watching online. Always fun to watch.
Cool. Yeah. I think I reached out to Paul Wynn today to ask him about tires for SIC. So he sent me a bunch of information, and I think what we're going to be running, we're going to start off with green reflexes, and we're going to progress to green relapses. It didn't look like anybody ran any blues. Maybe there's some black in there, black reflexes to start if it's really cold, so we'll probably bring some of those, but I'm hoping for the best. First time at SIC, so it should be fun.
Cool, man. That sounds super
You
exciting.
guys are gonna do great. Nothing to worry about.
Fingers crossed.
You just gotta show up. That's the tough part for you guys. Everything else, the boys will take care of.
Yeah, school's a big factor right now. So
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
mhm.
I was never allowed to miss school for RC. Never. Under no circumstances.
I feel like a bad parent when I let them do that.
No, hey, you know what? If you're a bad
Cool.
parent, Dakota Fenn's parents are bad, and who these other young professionals, bad parents also. Sometimes
It's true.
Hey, lessons learned at the track are invaluable lessons, and I try to explain that to a whole bunch of people that don't understand RC. So, like, if you look at Benny as an example, right? Not about his racing, about his experience, or you at the track when you were younger going with your dad, right? So, the one thing that a young boy never gets to experience any place else, maybe Boy Scouts or something like that, but I still don't think it's the same capacity, right? So you can take a kid like Benny who's 10 years old, right? He's racing at almost pro level in a couple of his classes, right? Or maybe he's there soon. It just seemed like he was doing that well recently.
He's getting good.
Right. So ultimately, any pro or anybody who's in his same advanced racer category, right, that walks by him in the pits or something like that, he gets a certain level of respect based on how he's racing. It has nothing to do about his age. And where else does that happen? It doesn't, right? So, like, literally, you can go to a racetrack and there can be this young kid killing it, right? And that kid has the same respect as a 30-year-old guy who's, let's say, coming in second in that same category or race. So I just think that, the exposure that the kids get from the mechanical advantages of learning how to wrench, how to communicate with peers at a young age, and then having to handle, let's say, the success or failure of a race really builds character, like a track.
Ben, I'm sure you're setting benchmarks for the boys that have certain grades and certain things in place before they're able to go down to a race. So you're all right.
Yeah, it's like, if we're on a roll, you tell me what we're doing, because obviously you're pulling your weight.
There you go.
So that's kind of how it goes. So right now, knock on wood, we're there. So we're going to SIC.
Very cool.
Sweet.
I will be watching. I hope you guys make it.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that big time. I was going to quickly, I don't know what segment, but I was going to talk about silly season. You'd mentioned silly season before.
Go ahead, brother.
So, I mean, got a lot of inquiries this year, which is awesome. I love, when people reach out and all that. And, just want to quickly touch upon, why someone should go for a sponsorship. I've had all different kinds of people. Some people are like, hey, someone said to send this in. That's not really what we're looking for. What companies should be, and what at least I look for when I'm looking to add someone to a team would be, honestly, like, what are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the team? Not just how can I help you, but also how can you help the team? So in a lot of cases, that's being a good ambassador. If somebody is helping other people and, they're a positive person and, oh, you need a part, here you go. These are the kind of people that make good teammates. If you're doing really well in your races and you're making the A main, or you're a threat for the A main, well, then, definitely, we want that. So, it's about being an ambassador and about being part of a team more than it is about just, did I get that discount? A lot of guys are just looking for the discount, and we're looking for that social media presence. We're looking for, are you an ambassador? Are you representing well? Do you know the product well? Can you help people with the product? So like if somebody comes up to me and they've never run an Associated before, the first thing I'm going to tell them is to try it out. Let me know how it goes. If you want to demo my car, absolutely. I'll meet you at Trains and Lanes, meet you wherever you want, and we can check it out. So anyway, that was just my 2 cents for silly season, a little bit of advice, and writing a resume. Try and include a picture. Put your stats in there. Don't just tell me to go to RC Garage. Put something nice together for yourself. That's my advice. Anyway.
Speaking of RC Garage,
Why
Justin
even
Drinks.
Why even put this, George? Who? I want to know who wrote this up. It wasn't me.
I had to though, because basically I've been doing so good on media and production and working with you all on tonight's episode that I totally just forgot this one. I even had some LCRC stats that on some of the races. But Justin, if anybody knows you, we don't have to put a stat up, brother. You are an excellent racer, and we look forward to seeing you this upcoming year and what you're going to do. With that being said, this podcast is about an hour and 40 minutes in, and we need to throw a lasso around it and suck it back in and basically bring it to an end. Before we do, Tom Petrella is going to talk about what's going on at his track once he Yoda's back in from some other galaxy. Tommy, what's going on at your track coming up?
I'm here, but if I put my finger over the camera, you can actually see the flyer.
That's
Now,
insane.
yeah.
but you don't
I
want to
think
see me.
I think it's awesome, man. You're like Yoda coming in and out of the.
I had to turn too because my wreath comes up, so it messes me all up. But
He's like an RC god.
No, look, I don't know when you guys are going to release this one, so it might be right on the edge. But our biggest race last year was our New Year's race, so we're doing another race this New Year's called our New Year's Bash. Usually get a good crew of people. I know some guys are reaching out to me traveling about 4 or 5 hours to come race, which I'm humbled to have
Nice.
people come race at the track. We're lucky. We got a good vibe. We got a good group of people racing there. Keep getting new people all the time. Unfortunately, I don't have it near me. I'm not going to go run and get it. I just picked up an Associated Stadium truck, Vin. So I will hit you up with some ideas on that one. Trying to get that class growing. That's been an absolute blast. But for the 30th, we'll run 2-wheel drive buggy, 4-wheel drive buggy, stadium truck, some short course, do some novice. Pretty much as long as we get 3 of a class, I'll run them. And I'm not going to everybody not run. We'll figure out a way to fit you in somewhere. But that's our next big race in addition to club racing every weekend. Hold on, buddy. I'm going to walk away now because I'm with you.
Where are they racing these things? Where?
So, Justin, first of all, Euro truck, bro. Euro truck. Amazing, right? So, like a
Looks
decade
cool.
ago, dude, it is so much fun. There's Tom's. So,
We're ready.
hopefully, Tom, if all we need is one more person, and I can hopefully bring 2 soon, Tom. So, you said 3 makes the class. We're coming down the rhythm. We're going to run some
I'm not
Euro
sure how they're
truck.
going to do. I'm not sure how well they're going to do on jumps, but hey, we'll try anything.
More droop. I need more droop. Yeah, so real quick about that, and Jersey RC Race Promotions, my buddy Brian Boyce, who's part of this podcast, but really busy with a new business he had opened up this past year down in Fork of the River, New Jersey. He's got an indoor track set up, and they run a whole bunch of different classes. So this was like $180 to get into. Maybe like 10, 15 years ago, I saw Euro Trucks racing on ESPN. And if you've never seen it before, just Google or YouTube Euro Truck Racing, real live stuff first, just to get the concept. So big, huge diesel machines battling it out into every turn, disc brakes overheating and water jets shooting on them, steam coming out, like just dragons battling, like super cool. Then you just take it down to this small scale. So these things are $180. They're TTO ones. My buddy Scott Hawks, who basically is also involved in this, and him and I and a couple other guys are doing it together. he had made a reference that these things are like where model meets remote control car. So TT01 I never bought before. It is like the most basic plastic bathtub chassis, although it has diffs with spider gears, but there's no seals on anything, and the shocks are, generation one. There's no seals in those, so they're very primitive. But on the track that you're running them, the cars can actually perform. A couple little secrets here and there in terms of what I believe to make it run better. And you can definitely still fill them, the diffs, with fluid to get some action. Probably leak over time, but what a blast. I've had a couple of races so far, and the competition's really been great, Justin. And if there's any indoor place near you, I've been away for it for a long time, but I'm getting back into it this season, starting with Euro Truck. And what a blast, man. What a blast.
Very cool.
Highly recommend it. I just actually had a race last weekend where I had a battle with a guy that was so close. Hadn't had a battle like that since A scale, and it's been obviously weeks since we've been racing, right? So it was the second race. I was out there, and literally, man, I could read the serial numbers on this guy's axle for like a couple of laps strong. And literally, that's what I was saying before, like kind of where the race slows down and you just feel like your inputs are like right there. And I just kept like I was so comfortable where I was like, I gotta open the door, because the door wasn't opening for me. And I was just waiting for that lap where the opportunity came through. And every time I try to open the door, he would close it. And it was like one of those situations. And whatever, I ended up coming in third. It was a great battle. But just that battle with this limited car, and when you compare these things to like our A scale cars, Tom, I don't want to lose you. Like these cars are simple. The A scale cars are so complex, but to be able to have the same thrill of that competition, I think is awesome. So Tom might be able to weigh in on that because he runs smaller scales, the Euro Truck and A scales.
Look, if the four of us went shopping somewhere, we each had shopping carts, we'd be banging into each other, trying to race each other through the store, right? It's our instinct at this point. But any race is good racing.
Yeah. Anyway, the Euro Trucks I just thought were really cool. So just a way to keep your skill sharp throughout the winter season, just like what Tom's running. And the scale vehicles he's got at his racetrack. Just a great way to keep that knife sharp all season. Aside from that, Vinny, you got anything else to add? That wasn't.
Yeah, wrong button. Sorry. No, I'm good. Thank you.
Cool, man. Tom, anything else you want to throw in before we conclude?
Nah, man. I know you're going to thank Justin, but I'm going to take a second to thank Justin too, because you're going to say whatever I'm going to say before I say it. So I'm going to go first. But no, Justin, awesome talking to you, dude. I look forward to catching up with you next time at the track and having a beer and chatting a little bit more. But
Yes, sir.
you've been killing it. It's awesome to see good things for good people. So keep it up.
Yes, sir.
You
I
ever want to
appreciate that.
practice? You ever want to practice, Justin, and talk setup, man? You just let me know.
I think I'm gonna take you up on that because
Awesome.
I don't know. I'm okay with Aiden beating me, but I can't let Dylan beat me now too, man. So I might have to take you up on that.
All right, cool.
And you're only 27. You're already saying these damn kids. See, it only gets worse.
Justin, it goes without a doubt in saying that it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. Not only do I consider you a friend at the track, but you are a racer that who's awesome to race against. You're a professional in your own hobby, and it was a pleasure to have you here in the Northeast RC Racer podcast. We hope that in the future you might want to be interested and come back. We're definitely going to follow your progression this next season coming up. If there's anything that's true is that obviously you got your mechanics down. You bring some of that setup advice into it. I think you're going to totally crush it this coming season. So we really appreciate you coming in, and thanks a lot.
Thank you, George. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So for everybody else, this was episode number 12 with Justin Drinks. Next year starts a new year for all of us. We're going to be kicking it with episode number 13. We got a lot of people up in the lineup that we're interested in talking to, that we're going to reach out to, whether it's actually racers like Justin or RDs, which is race directors that we've been talking about. Maybe even some professional racers are going to come in and chime in on what's going on. So possibly Matt Willard next. That's what we're hearing in the background.
Cool.
So
I
we're
believe
really
he just signed with AE.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll get the slide
There's a
deck.
certain quality of person. I was biting my tongue the whole time. Man,
That's it.
it.
It's all right. Tommy's up. He's got to get somebody in the lineup. That's totally fine and cool, man. So, we're really excited for 2024. I know I am. I've been really excited to do this. I got a great group of guys that I'm doing it with. Vinny's been a great new addition. Tom's always fun to hang out with on the podcast and brings a lot of value. And my boy Toby, who's not here, of course, is my right-hand man and trying to get a lot of the production done and, bringing his persona to the podcast, to say the least. So we look forward
to his smile.
Basically. So we're really excited for the next coming episode. So everybody come back. Do me a favor, thumb it up, subscribe it, share it, do all those good things. This is the Northeast RC Racer Podcast. We're going to check you guys out in 2024. This is episode 12 with Justin Drinks. Thanks so much. We'll catch you guys next time.